Dan, I've put some serious thought into this, and I think we should change the name of our podcast.
Really? Wait, where is this coming from?
I just think, I don't know, the Woodhounds is selling us short, man. We are much more than that.
Really? Well, I don't know if I know where you're going, but let's hear it.
I think we should be calling ourselves the Milestones Podcast.
Oh, I know where you're going with this now. Yes. In fact, that wouldn't be a bad name.
Yeah, the Milestones Podcast. Dan, we've hit our second major milestone pretty darn close together from when we posted our 100th download.
Yeah, it's
our
back
100.
to back.
Yeah, our 100th episode. I mean, now we've hit another milestone, Dan.
Right. We had the 100th episode, and then the next week we hit the 100,000th download.
Yeah. How about that?
Wow.
That is, so when you look at podcasts, that's some serious statistics. When I first started looking at podcasting, the first thing they tell you is do not look at your podcast numbers in relation to other social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and stuff. They said, like, the views that you get on YouTube, that's got nothing to do as a barometer for your downloads in a podcast.
Correct. Yep. It's not relevant at all. It's completely different set of everything.
Yeah. The number of, because podcasts is a long-term commitment for a person who downloads to listen, and the engagement level is deeper. And they always say, don't judge your podcast against like a YouTube video.
Right. It's all, but it's still, I mean, I hope you're not trying to take away from the fact that, hey, 100,000 downloads, man, that is something.
No, well, I'm thinking like, when you think of 100,000 downloads versus how many views you can get on a YouTube channel,
yeah,
100,000 doesn't sound like a lot. But if you look at it in the podcast universe, it's major league.
I can't remember the exact number, but I know I read somewhere that I think it was 98% of all podcasts average only less than 100 downloads a month. Something like that. I could be wrong.
Well, I remember you were the first one to put me onto this. Now it's all coming back to me. You'd ran some numbers and you had determined that we were within the top 10% of all podcasts globally, just based on our monthly downloads.
Yep. Yeah. So here we are, yet another milestone set. My goodness.
100,000 downloads.
Ooh, well, and by the time this comes out, it'll be maybe 101,000.
I'm waiting for our next milestone for the $100,000 a month income generated by a podcast that, it's just a cash cow for us, Dan.
That milestone may never happen. We'll be waiting.
What color Maserati do you want, Dan?
Well, I think maybe blue to go along with your pink one.
I have a blue one for the weekends, so I need a different color one for weekdays. Yeah, I've always said when Maserati comes out with a firewood delivery vehicle, I will be the first in line.
Really?
Yeah, I'll have my hand out faster than anyone.
I will be anxiously awaiting to see that.
Yes. All right. Well, Dan, let's thank everyone for tuning in, downloading the Woodhounds podcast. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. My name is Joe, and if you don't know, I am a YouTube personality known as Ohio Woodburner. And sitting across from me is
Dan from Back 40 Firewood, also YouTube channel, social media.
Social media. So I'm on Facebook. You're on Facebook, but you're also on TikTok and other
All over.
yeah, others that I've never even heard of before. Yeah, and then you also have you got a pretty robust website too for your social media empire.
Yes,
I find it impressive. My website ohiowoodburner.com is mostly geared towards my firewood business.
right.
But yeah, but you don't have to deal with that because you are not a business in firewood, right? They have a term for guys like you. It's slipping my mind right now.
Um, is it enthusiast? No. What
No,
is it? Some
it's like you
hobbyist.
have. I was going to say it's like you have a hobby, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like something that you do that brings you joy, and there's a term out there. Yeah, that's it.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
I am not I don't have a business website, but yes, I am just a hobbyist.
Yes. I admire you though, Dan. And even though I have a full-blown firewood delivery service, I believe, and I did a video on this recently where people, people look to me for advice, which I would caution them. Don't what was that bumper sticker? Don't follow me, I'm lost. And I get a lot of questions. And the one recommendation I put out there to people is that if you're wanting, I said this was mostly for firewood, but I think it's good for anything. If you're really wanting to get into business, start studying all the other businesses out there in the area that you're looking at getting into and see everything that they do and study everything that they do. And then do the exact opposite. you know, that is the key to success. I think, business, I think it should be an expression of you and your pursuit of being exceptional, being the great innovator in your industry, no matter what it is. For me, it was firewood. But the one thing I do is I'll look at what other people are doing. When I was a softball coach, I would look at what other teams were doing because I felt if I found a team that was doing something that was innovative or different, I would steal it and I would try to do it even better than they did. But here in this case, I am trying to improve my professional operation, and I can turn and look at a person who has a hobby of doing firewood in their backyard. And so when I was looking at putting a roof over top of my firewood processor, who do you think I looked to? Dan, do you have a hint? Do you have a guess?
Um, hmm. Who was someone that
Anyone that
recently did that within the past year?
and he may not be a professional. This his firewood could be a hobby.
That's
I wonder who I looked at.
and wasn't it like the building was a little off square and not really? Yeah, I think I know. Oh, you're talking about the number one hobbyist here in Wisconsin, Back 40 Firewood.
Yes, I'm talking about you. And trust me, I watched that because I kind of felt that a carport was in my future, and I watched you. And I watched you what you were doing when it was built, but I mostly watched you after it was built. And the one thing that you had said is that you will never ever do anything like this again. If you ever had to put a carport together, you would pay someone to do it. It was that miserable of an experience for you.
Yes, it was. It's not that I will never have another carport. If I do, I will not be putting it together or putting it or assembling it and putting it up and putting the roofing on and getting everything plumb and square and put together. Yeah, I will definitely the next time hire that part out.
Yeah, in which this case I did. The company I bought it off of, that was part of the deal was they would put it up for me. But you said the magic words, plumb and square. That
Two
is the
key
name of the
terms.
game, man.
Yep. Anytime you're constructing a structure, those are two key elements to have.
You were up there putting up those sheets of steel for your roof, and you're like, "Wow, this is going great." Until you got to the other end of it, and it was off by about 4 inches.
Yeah, and the very first one was off by like an eighth of an inch. Like it didn't take hardly anything to be off, and then it just multiplied each sheet
Right.
after that.
Yeah. I watched these guys put mine up, and I mean, it went together like an erector set, something I had when I was a little boy. And just, I guess that's because they knew what they were doing. I was laughing when they showed up before I got there. I had the gate open for them. And I know when they showed up, and I know what time I got there. And when I got there, they already had all of the trusses assembled and laid out on the ground, and they had all the joints screwed together. And I was laughing because if I were the one putting this together, I would have still been looking, for my half-inch socket and wondering,
Yep.
why my battery's dead on my drill.
And didn't you say that your stop was the third one they were putting together that day?
Yeah, it was a third one. They finished it in
Jeepers.
darkness, and it poured rain too. These
Wow.
guys, they just live on the road. That's what they do.
Yeah, see if and that just I mean if you had someone like that that had put these together before, like if I would go out there and put 10 more of these carports up, I'm sure my 11th one would be a heck of a lot better than my first one. So having that
Sure.
experience is just key.
Yeah.
Just key.
But Dan, I'm looking at these carports here, and I don't want this episode to be about carports, but really more about improvements. I guess an accountant would call this a capital improvement of your yard, because in business you would want these kind of improvements to bring some kind of return to where it makes you more profitable, or it's something that generates income for you.
Yes.
Maybe if you are a non-professional, you aren't as really concerned about that as you are just wanting to have a roof over your head and get out of the weather. But quite honestly, I'm in this to make money. It's my livelihood. But when I try to do a cost benefit analysis of this roof, I think it just comes down to I just spent money to have it put up, and it's not going to really make me any more productive or any more profitable. It's just going to make me more comfortable. But then again, how do you put a price on that?
All right. So you're saying the saying spend money to make money may not necessarily apply in your situation, because whether or not that carport is there, you'll probably end up running your machine just as much.
I think that is probably accurate. I put up a couple videos about this on my YouTube channel. A lot of the comments were, wow, that looks great, and think, that now you can work in the rain. But I'll be honest, I don't think if it's raining, I still won't be out there working. You know, just working in the rain causes other problems, and I think it's just more of like a creature comfort. I am not supposed to be in the sun. And I think too, having such an expensive machine, I think like especially my Yappa 405, I think it commands kind of like a a throne, for it to sit on, and putting that roof over top of it. I mean, gosh, that is just so nice to be there.
It just establishes a presence of the wood yard from
Yeah.
far away where people can see and they can say, you know what? That looks like a professional wood yard. There's no
Yeah.
hobbyist working there.
So why did you put up a roof on on your property then?
Main reason was out of the elements, and mostly to your point, the sun, believe it or not. Like that's the one thing, because yeah, if it's blowing snow, if it's raining, I probably won't be outside anyway, but when it's nice out, it is I've found it a huge benefit to be able to be out of the sun, in the shade, and whatever I want to do, I can do it.
Yeah. I once upon a time worked for a family owned um, grocery store. They had multiple locations. And I still remember the owner one time because they were spending money to remodel their grocery stores. And, you know, the owner says there are a lot of things that you do in a small business like this that don't make pure financial sense. But when you're family owned or if you're a small business, you do it anyways. And I kind of had that in the back of my head when I was thinking of putting this roof up. Um, I don't see it where I'm going to recoup this money. It's just money that I've just spent to improve my operation, but it's not. I think it's just improving. I don't know, the comfort. You know, I guess you could say that it's going to make me more productive. I guess maybe I will work more in the afternoons now than what I normally do. But I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I don't see it as just this cold, hard decision to invest money into this operation and it's going to bring me a return. I don't see it happening like that.
Well, I've got two words for you.
Lay it on me.
Write off. So there you go. Because that is
Yeah.
something that as much as I am labeling myself as a hobbyist, the side of the social media business, it was something that I could use to improve my working conditions, but then also gave me a write off.
But you just reminded me though, Dan, I go back to when, and I refer to myself, I am a recovering landlord. When I, when I used to own rental properties, you know, everything's a write off, but there's the two types of losses, when there's money involved, there's paper, and then there's, the actual money that you're
Yeah.
spending.
Yep.
So this was like actual money that came out of my bank account. So yes, it's a write off, but I'm also like, where's my money?
Right. Yeah.
But I will say this though, Dan, and that's where this gets back to the way I watched what you did. I know what you spent on your carport, and your carport is a higher quality. It's probably the top of the line as it comes to carports, the Versatube. They're
Yes.
top shelf. So mine's nice, but it's not built as heavy as yours, but I didn't really think that was necessary, but whatever. Mine was, I think $2,000 cheaper than yours, and they built it for me.
Yes.
And yeah, and I would have considered, had I not know what I now know because of you, I would have been at risk of buying my own Versatube building and putting it up myself. And I don't think it would have ever gotten done. I just know how I operate.
One frame would have been put together and then the rest would be in the box or on the pallet sitting there.
Right. Yeah, I would have been sitting holding like one pipe in one hand and one in the other and trying to read the directions, and it doesn't fit. Says the guy that can't get the Christmas lights to work on the Christmas tree each year.
Well, and then there's always that added like stress that you put on yourself because you see the advertisements and you read online how easy these go together, and at 1 to 2 days you can have it up you can put it together in a weekend, and then one day turns into 2 days and 2 days into three, and all of a sudden you're on your fourth and fifth day and you're like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
let's just get this over with.
Yeah, and I look at it too from just a pure production standpoint, okay? So this building was built in 4 hours. However, it took 5 days away from my operation because I had to have the live deck cleared off because I had to move the live deck out. And then when it was moved out, we had all that cleanup to do. I had some asphalt grindings to get moved out of the way. And then I had to sit around and wait for them to show up. And when they did, they showed up. And then the
Yep.
next day it rained, and then the next day I had to put the live deck back together. And I ran into some unintended consequences with that, which you'll see in my upcoming video. And then I had to wait for an item to get shipped from Wisconsin from Metza Machines, because of the problem I ran into. So yeah, just that one little simple thing turns into almost a week of downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So so technically you're spending money to not make money and you're losing money at the same time. Double whammy.
Yeah, well, if I were an accountant, I would probably be upset and like be losing sleep over that. But that's what I have that motto is time is time. Time is not money, in my opinion.
No.
Time is time. So it's not like I'm not enjoying life while all this is going on. I can still deliver wood, but I'm trying to get this one pile of logs whittled through pretty quick. And okay, so I'm a week behind.
Yep. Well, now,
Yeah.
the next day that it's raining, you can catch back up.
Hmm. But see, now if this were my hobby, I mean, that's part of the whole process is just
Right.
improving everything and making that yard nicer for me. And I've always said, the difference between, like, if you're turning a side hustle, your hobby, into a full time business, I said the biggest difference between the two is that a hobby is everything that you do makes sense to you. If when it becomes a business, everything that you do must make sense to your customer. So if you are trying to sell firewood, you should have firewood that's produced and able to be sold, and then not making it for an entire week could set you back.
Well, I am in a tough position then because everything I do makes no sense to me sometimes. Sometimes I have no idea what, but just a quick question. Do you have
Yeah.
room then underneath uh the carport to park your tractor if you were to like leave for the day and have it out of the, or do you have to always put it back in your container?
No, I could put it underneath there. The thing too is I'm wanting my roof to be high up in the air.
Yes.
And I think too, because it is so high, that I don't think you're going to be safe from like rain while you're underneath it. Cause I think, the rain could blow underneath it versus if
Well,
if it was lower to the ground. So I think that's probably going to be a reality also. But it is open enough to where, I could put a chair in there if it's a hot day or something. I could, have a place in there where I can get out of the sun.
take a nap, take your siesta. You won't have to drive home to take your nap anymore.
Yeah. I will say this too, and you've probably experienced the same thing. There is something about having a roof over your head. It has totally changed the the feel of my yard and of my machine. There's just something that's great about having that roof. I love it. Yeah.
And back to your point about, not everything being a spending money to make money, but yeah, just that, I don't know, just that feeling, like you said, it's almost like it's almost priceless being able to just, walk into the yard and beat that chest like, hey, look at me here, man.
Uh-huh. Well, I think that there is a level to that as well. When I think about the money that I spent on it, and it was under $4,000, um, it is priceless.
Yep.
I don't miss that money at all. I think from what I got and how fast it got put up, then the fact that I didn't have to do it is priceless. And I mean, it does. It really changes, I think, the perspective of the yard. And I do think that there is, especially if you are a retail, because I'm not open to the public yet, but when that day comes, it it causes, I forget the term that they use, perceived value, I think. It's like if some of these restaurants, if you ever notice, if it's an upscale, expensive restaurant, like the doors to open to walk into the place are real heavy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they
Yep.
they do that on purpose because it sends like a subliminal message to you about value. Or the tables or the chairs are real heavy, or the
Yep.
plates or the cups. Like you don't see paper plates at an expensive restaurant. Or cheap, thin silverware like you would get at a cafeteria. Their silverware is real heavy. It sends that kind of a message, and I think that roof kind of does that too. If and when the day comes that I am open up to the public, it kind of creates like a credibility, you know. And but again, that's another unintended consequence because I was doing it just to get the machine out of the weather and of course me.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, you're gonna love the fact of being out of the sun. That's the biggest thing that I noticed, and that's the rain isn't as big a deal as the sun. Trust me,
Yeah.
it's way better to be out of the sun. Now I know you just mentioned that you weren't open to the public yet for firewood sales, but I think you're going to be open to the public coming up here for a day where if people want to come and check out this new fancy carport, they can, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we had I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary of being at my new location, which you've been there, Dan.
Yes.
And I don't I mean, I hurt my shoulder the other day patting myself on the back, but the the location is awesome.
Yes, it is. It is awesome.
Yeah, it's just a great location. So we had that open house and the turnout was awesome. Everything about it was great. And you were there. And during that, everyone was thinking, I think you should do this again, Joe, you know? And so we decided that we're going to go ahead and have it again. But per my personal belief that if you're going to do something, it needs to be awesome, it needs to be exceptional, it needs to be great. So I'm trying to improve the open house, and we are going to make it more of like a Paul Bunyan style trade show, but just for firewood.
Ooh.
So we've come up with the official name, and we'll be marketing it as this. It is now the International Firewood Expo,
Whoo.
and it's going to be at the Ohio Woodburner Wood Yard, and that is going to be on May 18th, 2024.
Mark your calendars, everyone.
Be
Yes.
there or be square. We have a number of vendors or manufacturers that have already committed to coming. And the clue is in the title, international, is that we got a number of companies coming from out of outside of the United States. But I will be giving out like some more concrete information here in the weeks ahead. But I think you guys are going to be very impressed with who will be showing up and bringing machines. Very
All right.
impressed.
Well, I
Yep.
am looking forward to it. I can't wait. And I will say, I'm not sure if that shoulder being sore is from patting yourself in the back or trying to start your husky, because I think you might have husky shoulder. But
Uh-huh.
we'll leave that up for debate later.
Okay. Yeah, Dan. Well, good luck starting that 500 I. Okay, whatever. Yeah.
Oh yes.
All right. Well, Dan, thanks for bringing that up. But I am looking forward to the International Firewood Expo, and I hope that you're going to be there. You are going to be there, aren't
Yes.
you?
Yep. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope to see some listeners from the podcast there. And once again, thank you everyone for the milestone of 100,000 downloads. Whew.
Yeah, that is awesome. Dan, I am just proud to be 50% of the Woodhounds podcast.
Yes. Well, I am glad you're here, 50% in, even though this, and again, this is not, spending money to make money, just like your carport.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to the podcast. We are the #1 firewood podcast in the world.
And you can find us all over the place on all major podcasting platforms. And Joe, I got to say, the
Yes.
sun's out. It looks nice out. You better get back to work.
Yeah, I got to get back to work. So let me tell you then, Dan, to stay
Safe.
and stay under
A carport.
and have
A great day.